So basically, we started off this Jan term in education through social media talking about the how. One of the first classes I remember we were learning about collaborating and participating and giving your attention. We went in, we talked about behaviorism, and that was just basically going into this idea that you can't really understand all the way what's going on inside a person, but you can see how they're acting. You can't try and figure out what's going on the inside. You can just only understand by what's on the outside. I learned that cognitivism was just kind of a learning way that was just of small inputs where you have this short-term memory and somehow we're able to keep it in our long-term memory, but it's these short little experiences that build that. And then constructivism, which is basically you're pushed into the situation, and so now you have to apply and pull from whatever that you've been through, which kind of reminded me of fight or flight responses in that sense, where you might fight to figure out a problem, or you might just get over it. I think one of the biggest topics we talked about, which I even wrote a blog about because I was whoa, this is intense, which is net neutrality or the lack of it, and just asking the class, asking ourselves where would we be without it, which technically at this moment we don't have any net neutrality. And it was just, I think the big thing that stuck out in my mind, which net neutrality is the ability to see all content online without any type of interference of an internet service provider, at all. So being able to just access any type of internet content without any interference whatsoever. Everything is just at the same level. And so I think the big thing that, as I was reading so many articles about the fear of us without it, was that that's not exactly the reality, or that's not exactly what will happen. Of course, I'm not saying that we should trust internet service providers because capitalism, America, go hand in hand. But the thing was, I realized that these were simply possibilities, and nothing has necessarily happened yet that I'm personally aware of. But it is important that we are mentally prepared and we understand as consumers what is being given to us, or what we are paying for, because it's all by demand of people. And so I think if people were to come together, then it would be hard, but to be we're not going to use the internet, which sounds insane and probably not likely, but as a consumer, if we're really fed up with something, we don't like something, if we say we don't want it, we boycott something, that's when change happens, because money, we control where our money goes. If we do nothing about it, and always say is a couple of things, it's not affecting the pockets of the people that are making these movements, and in that case, nothing really will happen. And also, one of the things that we talked about was thinking out loud, as I called it. You know what? And let's take a look. To learn something and to understand something, you want to get it out. And that could be in a blog, or as I'm kind of doing, vlogging. With that, you also have this idea of implementing blogging in classes through education, implementing that for young students, but as they continue to grow, that could get really complicated, because then they have to juggle between this informal and this formal way of writing. I think one of the things was understanding that you have to keep in mind your audience in the way you write and in the outlet in which you're writing, because obviously if you're writing in a blog, you have the whole world that can listen, that can hear, that can benefit from all that you are learning. One of the other things that we got to talk about in class was the idea of open universities and what they can do for people. And the idea of diversity was one that just kept boggling my mind, because though they want to reach the world, and anyone who needs an education, who wants an education to further their life, to better their life, and it's accessible through the world, as long as you have Wi-Fi connection, you're able to access this, because you can only get this education through one language, which is English. And I thought if you're really trying to reach the world, how diverse could that really be? The thing that worried me was the credibility, because credibility comes through the years of, you know, being reliable. You have to build a reputation, and in the workforce, let's say if you're going through an open university, you're already struggling as far as it is financially, and so you have this other kind of like drive that you have to work past all the common misconceptions about an open university, or this way that people in the workforce might look down on you, and you'll have to work that much harder and fight that much more to be able to show like you did get an education. Your education is just the same as their education, with or without a reputation or a label. I was able to understand that you can use technology, you can use social media to further your education, and to further understand, because a professor and a teacher might not have all the information, but you have this beautiful thing called the internet at your fingertips, and you have this people who've acquired so much information over time that are able to contribute to your education and contribute to the knowledge that you can gain. And it was just a really amazing thing to learn and process all this stuff. Thank you.